Hi, y'all. Welcome back to Samantha's Beauty Confessions. Today, I am doing a solo episode, and I wanted to talk about something that's been a really big part of my personal and professional growth, and that is overcoming the fear of public speaking. This is something that I let hold me back for so long, and something that kept me from many different things, like sharing my story and connecting with other people on a deeper level, and honestly, just growth in general as a person. But once I was able to take the steps and face that fear, that is when so many doors opened up and it allowed me to grow in ways that I never thought were possible. And I wanted to record this episode because I know that I'm not the only person who struggles with this. And I want to share my personal story with you to show you that you can get past it if it's something you struggle with as well. And just reassure you that once you do, you will be amazed at the things that you are capable of. So let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome to Samantha's Beauty Confessions, where we engage in authentic conversations and confess everything it takes to turn our dreams into a reality. Together, we'll unlock your unique beauty and guide you toward living the life of your dreams. Get ready to go beyond the highlight reel, embrace the journey, and grow together, one conversation at a time. Let's travel back in time a little bit and start with the younger version of me, the high school version of me, specifically my freshman year, because this is whenever I enrolled in a speech class as an elective. And I did this because Tammy suggested that I do so. And, your mom is always right. You do what she says. So that's what I did. And in this class, we had to do different speeches in front of our classmates. And these speeches were also recorded onto a tape that would later be given to us, to have. And now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm like, I wonder where that tape is today, because I bet that the content on that tape is absolute gold and I would love to watch it back. So maybe I will stay tuned. Maybe I'll be sharing like the contents on that tape, on my feed sometime if I can find it. But anyways, up until this point of enrolling in this class, I don't know if I would have ever really considered myself a shy person. I actually think that from the outside looking in, it would be easy to assume that I was pretty outgoing. But public speaking and, standing in front of a room of people with their eyeballs just staring directly back at you, it shows you a lot about yourself. And it was this year of my life that I realized that just like most people, I had a fear of public speaking. So aside from the speeches that we had to do in front of our classmates, we also had to participate in a play that year. And luckily, I got a very small role where I think that I only had to memorize like one or two sentences maybe. And so I was happy with that. We also had to do a little performance, I guess you'd call it, in front of a random classroom or group of people, just to help us get out of our comfort zone of our classmates and, help us learn to speak in front of different groups instead of just the same ones. And let's just say that this was where I realized that I could kind of ad-lib a little bit, because while I thought that I had my speech memorized going into that day, once I looked out into the classroom and all of the different eyeballs staring back at me, I froze up and completely forgot every single thing that I was going to say. And to this day, I'm not sure how I was able to make it through that performance and how I was able to make sense of anything that I said, but somehow I did it. So that was my freshman year. The next thing that I remember happening was when I was in college, and, I kind of had steered away from any type of public speaking when I realized how much I hated it in that speech class in high school. But in college, I had to take a speech class in order to graduate. It was one of the required classes. And so I enrolled in it, and of course, I waited until the very last possible second to take the class. I waited until I pretty much couldn't put it off a second longer. And not only that, but I actually enrolled in this class at a different college than the one that I was attending. So I went to a pretty large school, Oklahoma State University, and they had a smaller college campus right across the street. And I chose to enroll there because I thought that the class size being drastically smaller would make things easier. But again, I was wrong. I think that just if you have a fear of public speaking, it doesn't matter how big or how small, the classroom is, it's still going to seem scary. It's just intimidating. And I can still remember that first day that I had to give a speech, and I remember just prepping for it like crazy. I don't think that I got a single bit of sleep the night before. I spent the entire morning just like pacing back and forth in my room in my sorority house, trying my very best to calm my nerves and having absolutely no luck in doing so. And whenever class time started, I remember the teacher asked us the dreaded question, who wants to go first? I did not raise my hand, spoiler alert. There was absolutely no way that I was going to be brave enough to get up before I had seen how prepared anyone else was, which in hindsight was the worst possible idea, because someone like myself that was already feeling that nervous, the last thing I needed to do was have something to compare myself to. But, hindsight's 2020, and that is what I did as, the college version of myself. And whenever it finally came my turn to give the speech, similarly to when I had to do the speech in front of the new class in high school, I blacked out again. I don't remember anything at all. I don't know if I stuck to, the format of the speech I had prepared. My whole body was shaking. I couldn't even tell you, the words I was saying because they were coming out of my mouth so quickly through very shaky lips, and it was just a mess, right? And then after I was done and finally kind of came back to reality, so to speak, I remember my teacher looking at the class and using me as an example of somebody who wasn't nervous, who didn't seem nervous. And I remember thinking, like, am I imagining this? Like, there's no way she thinks I wasn't nervous. I was so nervous. And again, hindsight's 2020, this probably should have been a sign that I could actually have somewhat of a decent public speaking ability if I actually applied myself. But to my 20-something-year-old, 21, 22-year-old self, I didn't think anything about the comment other than that the teacher was absolutely insane for having this thought in the first place. Now, spoiler alert, I did not end up graduating college, so I hardly have any hours left, like maybe 18 or 20 or something like that. And 3 of those hours are still speech. So needless to say, after I gave my first speech, I dropped the class and never looked back. And that was, I think, the last time that I had to do any type of public speaking until I took my state board test for my instructor's license in like 2017, I think. And again, the same type of story. I practiced and I practiced until I drove myself and everybody around me crazy. And the day of the presentation, I blacked out again and remember pretty much nothing from it. But one thing I will say about this experience that was a little bit different was that I actually had something to do with my hands as I was talking. And, for this specific test, I had to do some kind of a demo on a mannequin for the people in there, like the judges, I guess you call them, or the inspectors, and the other people who were testing. And I don't know if there's like any proven science behind it, but there's something, at least for me, about knowing what to do with my hands and having something to occupy those while you're standing in front of a group of people that seems to make the process a little bit intimidating. But again, there's no science behind that. That's just my personal experience. And not long after this was when I started my social media page. And for those of you who may not remember, my page in the early days was strictly just hair photos. Like for, 3-ish years, I never posted a single photo or video of my face, and I definitely never did anything where I had to talk to the camera. And all of these things tie back into that fear of public speaking, right? Which at the root of that is something bigger. It's a fear of judgment, or, a fear of looking stupid or sounding stupid, or whatever you want to call it. Like, anytime that you put yourself out there in a vulnerable way, it's scary, but usually the root of those nerves is something much deeper than what we think it is on the surface level. So for 3 years, I just posted business stuff and hair photos and videos. But I always had this urge in me to do something more. I really wanted to allow people to kind of see the person behind the camera and get to know me on a deeper level and get to talk about, more serious things and just get to be me, I guess. And I wanted it so badly, but for some reason I could never find the confidence to do it. Like, I would literally film these videos with like hair tips and tutorials, kind of like I post now. And I'd get it all filmed. I'd get it all edited. I would write the captions. I'd find the music. I'd type out the hashtags. But when it came time to post, I simply couldn't do it. And then one day, something happened in my life that was much bigger than my fear. And that something was my divorce, which I've talked about on here numerous times, so I won't go into that. But this experience, for the first time in my life, went above and beyond anything that fear could have ever been. And I didn't just want to share. I needed to. I had all of these big feelings and these emotions inside of me, and I knew that I needed to get them off my chest, not just for me, but for other people who were going through the same thing, or who had been through the same thing, or were about to go through the same thing in their life. And I'm smart enough to know that by this point, I wasn't going to be able to just magically snap my fingers and get over my fear of public speaking to be able to put myself out there, but I knew that there had to be a way to do it. And so I started doing some research, and this is whenever I found somebody to help me overcome my fear of public speaking. I hired someone to work with me and kind of coach me through it, I guess. And let me tell you that this, still to this day, was one of the smartest and best decisions that I ever made. Because one thing about me, and I think that most people are similar here, is that when I put money towards something, I'm committed to it. Like, I could have watched free videos on YouTube for 100% and learned how to overcome my fear, learned little tips and tricks, but the chances of me actually staying dedicated without any type of investment behind it were slim. But when you put money toward it, and when there's somebody there holding you accountable, you can't really back out. You can't really skip out, And so I did the work, and it was hard. It was uncomfortable, but it was also a really quick process because I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I was working toward. And so I would get these homework assignments and I would turn around and do them. And the end assignment, the final assignment, I guess, when I was working with this person, was that I was going to film a video, which I'll actually link in the description of this episode. It's just this, I think it's 15, 20 minutes, a little condensed version of my story. And I hate even talking about it on here, and that I'm actually going to share the link with y'all to watch if you want, because now, again, hindsight's 2020, and I've come so far since that moment. And so when I watch it back, it's hard for me to watch just because I know that was the very beginning stages, but I think it's important to show that as well. So I'll share it with y'all. But anyways, once I released this video, it sounds dramatic, but everything changed. Posting this video and telling my story and letting go of all that I had been holding on to, all of the heaviness and the emotions and all the things for so long. Something about getting that off my chest and just owning it, it changed my life. It truly changed my life. It was so relieving. And it's crazy because when you think about like I mentioned earlier, the fear of public speaking and how it typically stems from something deeper. I always thought it was just I didn't like talking in front of people. And, that fear of judgment, which kind of is what it is, but the fear of judgment comes from a lot of the things I talked about in that video, from my childhood and just life experiences that I've gone to. But something about just speaking your fears out into existence sets you free. And once I did that, once I got the courage to push post, that is when all of these amazing opportunities started to pop up in my life. This is whenever I finally started posting my face on my page like I had wanted to do for so long. It's when I started sharing my perspective on things. It's when my followers finally got to see me as a person and not just as an Instagram handle. It's when I was able to start working with brands and do an education tour. It's when I got invited on podcasts and to speak on stages and teach at hair shows. And all of these amazing things that I would have never believed that I could do when I enrolled in that speech class as a freshman in high school. And what's wild is that this version of me was always there. Like my teacher in my college speech class saw something in me that was in there that I couldn't see in myself because all of those fears were diluting it and hiding it. And yes, I did hire someone to help me, and I'm so thankful that I did, but that person didn't make me into who I am today. They just helped me see what was inside of me because I couldn't do it on my own. And I think that is where I'm going to wrap up today's episode. I know that this one was short and sweet, but I really hope that by sharing this story and just how I was able to overcome this fear, that you realize it's possible for you too. Just know that the things that scare us the most in life are often the things that can lead us to the biggest growth and open up all of the doors that we didn't even know were possible. And I want to leave you with a little homework assignment, I guess you'd call it. And that is to sit down and think about whatever it is that you are scared of, whatever that fear is in your life. It may not be public speaking, but there's something, I'm guessing, that you are avoiding. And I want you to ask yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen if you decided to face it? And also ask yourself what amazing things could come if you were able to do so, because I promise you that you are. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you again next Monday. Okay, y'all, that's it for today's episode. Be sure to follow the show on whatever platform you're listening, and leave a rating and review to show your support so we can continue growing together. If today's episode really resonated with you, you can always share it to your story, and be sure to tag me so I can personally thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you again next week.